Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is now official that we are in the deepest economic recession in living memory, and it's proof that New Zealand needs a national-led government now that has a very clear plan. I can't emphasise enough how tough it is for people to find out that they no longer have a job, or that the work that they've been doing will no longer pay the same wages that they've had before because they don't get any overtime and there is no hope for them on that. We're hearing already from banks this morning that around 25% of banks' customers are finding that they have less income than they did this time last year. That's a significant drop in people's incomes, but also what we're also hearing from the banks this morning is that businesses are lacking confidence to invest in their businesses, even those businesses that would otherwise be expected to have withstood some of the restrictions that have been placed on them. This 12.2% GDP drop compares very unfavourably with our neighbours Australia that have had a 7% drop in GDP. This is a devastating time for many families as they look at job prospects for their children, but also for the parents who are looking at either not being able to secure new work, and we have seen 70,000 more people go on the unemployment benefits since March. We're now looking at a situation of 100,000 New Zealanders going on unemployment benefits. This is a very tough time, and it is a choice, very clear choice coming up for New Zealanders as to whether we have more businesses going to the wall, more people losing their jobs, more costs put on businesses, more tax, or people choose to have a better way. And we have a better way through lower taxes, more business investment, and quality infrastructure builds under the National Party. Paul.
What we've seen today with the statistics is that the economic damage was recorded in 3 months, but the consequences will last for many, many years to come. And so as a country, we're in a deep hole at the moment, and we need a really strong economic plan to get back on our feet and to restore our prosperity. And that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow with our fiscal plan. But the National Party is very much focused on creating jobs, increasing business investment, and delivering quality infrastructure that will improve the productivity of the country going forward. So what we're seeing today confirms our worst fears and just shows the depth of the challenge we face as a country.
Worst fears? I mean, it's better than what Treasury were impacting. Is that really the right language to be using?
It's terrible.
Well, look, everybody can debate about how bad the projections might have been, but what we've seen today, a 12% drop, is the biggest and sharpest drop in recent memory and a real significant challenge for the country.
Given that it wasn't as bad as Treasury had predicted, can the government talk this one up as a success of sorts?
I certainly don't think they'll be trying to argue that. I think everybody in New Zealand recognises the scale of the challenge we face.
You blame this in part on
I think, oh sorry, we've got Craig first. What?
You blame this in part on Labour's lack of plan. What would you have done differently?
Well, our plan is out tomorrow. You'll see that. You'll also see that, and we've made it very plain, that when it comes to issues around the border itself, that we would actually have an effective border, not only plan, but we would execute that plan. And what we wouldn't have is what we've seen at the moment, which is the yo-yoing in and out of lockdown. Jessica?
What are you hearing when you're out and about with businesses? Because it feels like a lot of people would accept we're in challenging times. What are they telling you in terms of these numbers? Because I don't think anyone would be hugely shocked that this is where we're at.
Well, I think what I'm hearing a lot from businesses is that many are holding back any investment decisions because they're very worried about their prospects in terms of being able to survive. We're seeing all over the country, and I'm sure you've seen it too, businesses where they've actually closed their doors. People aren't bothering to renew their leases. We're seeing a real, let's say, heartache in many for particularly small business owners. But as we know, is that those businesses where there are commodity sales, for instance, some of our exports on commodity products, we have been able to maintain some level of income for the country, and that level is primarily around our horticultural and agricultural and manufacturing sectors. But where we have been there's no plan in place in terms of anything around the hospitality, tourism or anything else that we've seen. But also there's no plan from the government on growth. It's all around actually squeezing more money out of the people who are still in business.
It's an unprecedented situation with COVID, so can you realistically say that things would have been any different had you guys been in charge?
Well, absolutely. And I think the big difference between New Zealand and Australia for this period that we've been talking about is the nature of the lockdown. There was no construction in New Zealand, much tougher rules in place, and we're paying the price for that. And it's just made the hole deeper, and we've got every confidence that New Zealand will get back on its feet. It's just a question of how quickly, and we believe we'll get faster.
But it's also important.
Australia is like comparing apples and oranges, though, isn't it? Especially when the impacts of the second wave in Victoria haven't yet been.
Victoria is only one part of Australia. I think it's also important to look at what had happened to our GDP figures in the March quarter, the quarter before the COVID lockdown. It certainly wasn't flash either.
Construction, looking at those numbers, there was a drop of 26% with construction. What restrictions would you have changed to allow that number to not be as dramatic?
Well, for a start, it's really clear that every government, when looking at issues like what the current government faced, should look at what is safe to open plus what is essential. Some of the restrictions put on around businesses that could offer a safe environment for shopping, whether it was construction or whether it was the local butchers or greengrocers, or whether it was the construction industry where people could undertake the work just as they do in the horticultural and agricultural sectors, we would have actually seen let's say less of a drop in the economic activity. Other countries were able to maintain that. Australia was certainly able to in construction, and it just beggars belief that that sort of, let's say, pragmatic but also principled approach was not taken. There was a better way, and the government failed to take it.
How much would that drop of today's drop would be prevented by this construction being used or done during the lockdown?
Look, you can't quantify that. All you can say is that all New Zealanders could hope and expect is that the government will give them the best chance to get through a very difficult situation in as good a shape as they might have.
But you've used it as the main reason to say what National would be different from in terms of the government, in terms of a 12% drop in GDP. Well, I'm asking what the difference is.
That's not correct.
Exact.
Well, it just stands to reason. If you're shutting down a bigger slice of the economy, it's going to increase the pain. And look, we can go over the entrails of the past. What really matters is what happens next.
That's right.
And that's why we have a clear plan focused on growth and jobs. And that's what matters to New Zealanders right now.
And I think it's also fair to point out is that we would not have said we were doing testing of border staff and then not do testing of border staff. We would not have let COVID-19 back in. But looking to the future is where we need to. New Zealanders, we're wondering whether or not they've got a job come Monday.
Isn't it the case that New Zealand is much more dependent on the global economy, things like tourism, international education, than other countries, and that's why it's so bad?
Look, I think Grant Robertson will be peddling out all sorts of excuses, but what we have to acknowledge is that we've got the sharpest slowdown in New Zealand's history. We have a deep economic hole. The damage that was wrought over those 3 months will have a lasting effect on the New Zealand economy, and we need to be really focused on growing the economy and creating jobs to get out of that hole.
Does decarbonation win the election?
I think what is going to help National in the election is a very clear path forward, a better way forward, actually a plan that people know we can execute.
This is the moment we've been waiting for as well, isn't it? An opportunity to really kick Labour on the economy.
It's not a matter that, it's not something that we've been waiting for. What is, I think the people are waiting for is our plan to come forward. We'll be putting that plan out tomorrow. I think people will see a very clear difference between us and the backward-looking Labour Party.
Is it still calling you irresponsible and chaotic when it comes to the economy?
Look, I'm sorry that someone like Mr Robertson wants to indulge in that sort of name-calling. What I want to say very clearly is I'm focused on the future, I'm focused on New Zealanders, and I'm not going down the line of silly name-calling like he does.
A couple of questions by the colleagues. What's your favourite ACT policy?
Do you know what? I'm actually mostly focused on the National Party, and I haven't been worried about the ACT policies.
Have you ruled out implementing any ACT policies?
Absolutely, we would be wanting to look at anything should we be fortunate enough to lead the next government. Obviously, we're not going to rule things in or out because, do you know what? I don't spend my time worrying about the ACT Party policies. What I'm doing is thinking of the future for New Zealanders and our own plan and a better way forward.
Would ACT the tax cuts it wants?
Oh, you just have to wait and see, don't you? You just wait and see. We've got our fiscal plan out tomorrow.
Robertson says, in a way, this result shows the limitations of GDP as a measure of the country's
Oh, for goodness sake. He hasn't really, has he?
He has. He said that this result shows the limitations of GDP as a measure of the well-being of a country. What do you make of those comments?
What a failure comment from a Minister of Finance. I mean, for goodness sake. Actually, the Minister of Finance should understand that people will feel a lot happier when they have more money in their own pockets, when they have more of their own money, they have a job, they have a way forward, they have a plan, they can have confidence in a government to get out of the way and let them do what they need to do. I'm just staggered that a Minister of Finance who can't even be assured that the preview document is quite right is actually now going to say it's all GDP's fault.
I could make that point. I had a call from the Secretary of the Treasury this morning saying that actually we can't rely on this document that we were given yesterday. So the document online was correct. The printed document was printed from the wrong version. And so there's a whole lot of differences between the printed document.
The Finance Minister should proofread the document.
I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is Treasury has got sloppy under Grant Robertson's watch over the last few years. This is the second mistake that they've made. They bungled the budget a couple of times ago, and now we have another preview document that they printed the wrong one. So it's sloppy.
The printers actually apologised for it. So the
Yeah, sure.
Oh, it would have to be someone else's fault, yeah. Okay.
Economists have told us that shovel-ready projects won't help thousands of women out of work. What will you do to specifically help women recover from COVID job losses?
That's a very good point, actually. In fact, I'd say to them that many women are involved in the shovel-ready projects, particularly around financing, administration, other ones. And I've met many women engineers doing excellent work in building the fabulous roads that National signed off on and funded. So I'd say that anybody being in work is an excellent thing. I'd also say this. I understand that health and education are massive priorities particularly for women voters, and they need to be paid for. And that's why we need a really strong, healthy, growing economy so that we have better health care, we have better education, and that we have more people able to look after their own children.
Does your party believe that the Ministry of Health should step in at the CDHB and potentially sack the board members?
Well, when I've been in Canterbury, people have asked me about what's happening in Canterbury District Health Board. Of course, the Minister of Health, Chris Hipkins, needs to answer that one, since he's been the minister now for, well, as long as, I guess, some of the other ministers that they've had in the current government. So I think they need to answer that. What is really clear is that the people of Canterbury should be expecting that they will actually have a functioning health board and that they will have a good relationship between the Ministry of Health and the Health Board. I understand there has been a massive breakdown in relationship between the Ministry and the Health Board, and he needs to step in and do something about it.
Your particular candidate said several times at a electorate meeting last night that the ministry needed to step in. Is that party policy, or is she kind of overshot where National is actually at?
Look, I think that everyone's waiting for the ministry to step up and for the minister to step up. When they step up, we'll see what the result is.
Now that we're in the thick of the campaign, are you or your caucus reconsidering working with Winston Peters and New Zealand First after the election?
Do you know what? We've actually just been getting on with our work, and we haven't been reconsidering anything on that. Obviously, we've been very focused on the work that we've got being released tomorrow, and I think that's where we should be.
Is there a teeny tiny chance that you might work with Winston Peters?
Do you know what? There's a really big chance that we'll have an excellent plan out tomorrow, and people will see massive points of difference. I've made it very clear in the past that we've had, our caucus has been very clear on that, and I haven't seen any indication to suggest that we'll have to change our minds on it.
How are you finding campaigning under the COVID-19 restrictions today?
Well, it certainly has its challenges, but it also, every challenge has opportunities. And, I'm a very positive person, and, we've got a very positive team. So obviously we can't do public meetings in Auckland. We have, 10 people or something we can have there. That's Paul and me and a few other people. And we certainly can't do the big public meetings that we were having all around the country before the latest border incursion and lockdown. So, we're just getting on to doing it different ways. We're using a lot more social media. We're using a lot more opportunities to talk through, obviously, media. But it just means we have to change. But you know what? None of that matters to people, because a lot of them, 100,000 New Zealanders, have been told actually they may not have a job this time next year.
Is it disappointing to have your big campaign launch as an online event?
No, in fact, it's great to know that we will be having, and we understand, people would be disappointed, and there'll be some of our members, our members of the National Party disappointed that they had bought tickets to go to Auckland to be part of this enormous event that we had planned. But we're going to have a really exciting modern campaign launch on Sunday. It'll be the first of its kind in New Zealand. It will be exciting, it'll be fun. And you know what? We've got a plan for the future, and it's a better way than the current people.
Given the 100-person cap, will all of the candidates even be able to attend?
Well, you'll just have to wait and see. It's amazing what you can do these days.
On tomorrow's tax policy, it's been a long time coming. What can we expect?
Sorry?
On tomorrow's tax policy, it's been
What do you want to tell
them?
them?
They'll just have to wait till 10 o'clock tomorrow.
What you'll see is a really exciting tax plan and everything else, fiscal plan, everything. Everything we're doing is about growth. So you can expect really, really big growth plan. Yep.
The previous tax policy around indexation, or is it?
Oh, you just have to wait and see, Toby. You're always trying to get me to do that.
On these GDP numbers, is there a number that you think, if you were in charge, if you were the Prime Minister and government, that you would be happy with, that you would try to get? The economy is going to shrink. We can all see that.
Look,
look. Do you think, you could have gone to 7 like Australia, or what?
Look, everybody around the world has seen a downturn, and all you can do in government is try and reduce the damage. And what we've seen in New Zealand is very substantial. 12% is a big drop, and it's a big hole that we've got to climb our way out of.
You're just saying you can reduce the damage less, but how much do you think?
So I'm not going to put figures on that. All you can do is do your best as a government and ensure that New Zealand has had every opportunity to get a job and to get the economy going again.
So you're having a crack at Labour and its management and this deep recession, but you can't say what it would have been under your work.
I think anybody around the world will see that there's an enormous amount of uncertainty. So all you can do is give yourself the best shot.
Yeah, wait till tomorrow.
It may very well have been as bad
No.
as under Labour.
Never. Come on. No, we can say otherwise. We can say that it would not be, we would not have stopped the construction industry, we would not have stopped the work on the roads, we would not have stopped people building houses. We would have not allowed people to say that they were testing at the border when they weren't testing at the border. We would have actually got that right. So that's in the past though. We know we could do a way better job. But the thing is, people are looking to us in New Zealand. They're looking for a plan, a future, an opportunity, understanding that New Zealand cannot dwell in the past. We need to move to the future, and we have to have a better way forward, which we have.
What you want is a lockdown that's more akin to like a level a level 3 lockdown. So if you were in charge, you probably would have.
Can I just
level 4,
tell you is that I would hope in the future that we don't need to have lockdowns. We do these things properly, we don't need to have them.
have lockdowns.
Well, I don't know.
Have lockdowns. And what you're saying is that a level 3 lockdown is
Look,
probably more your flavour.
Ultimately, Thomas, it's got to be absolutely focused on the economy and I don't want to go over the past of all the things that Labor messed up on the border and what they could have done better. The fact is we're looking to the future. So people in New Zealand are looking at this and they're saying the economy is the number one biggest issue for them because New Zealanders understand that where business confidence is so low, where people are worried about investing in their own businesses, when people are worried about investing in any business, we're going to end up with massive job losses.
Because the Prime Minister says that her focus is the health response and the economic response follows on from that. And you're typically saying that when you get health advice and economic advice, and they're both conflicting.
I think we all...
You're on more on the economic side.
No, I want to say this really clearly. It's very obvious that some of the decisions being made at the moment are not entirely on health advice. So let's just understand that we put that to one side. And I don't want to go through second guessing everything that's been going on, but I will say that we have a plan to move forward, to move our country forward in a positive way, which people will understand is quite different, actually significantly different from the current more welfare, more taxes, more excuses that we get from Grant Robertson, the Minister of Finance, and Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister.
What exactly you implied there when you said that they're not doing things on a health response? What advice are they acting?
I'm saying to you very clearly, is that clearly it's not entirely that. If it was, we wouldn't have the Deputy Prime Minister coming out saying that. The Deputy Prime Minister is the one who said that, and I'm just saying to you, he's in the Cabinet room, not me. He's saying it. I'd guess he's right. Yep. Okay.
Very good.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
no, Jason asked the same question. He said, what specific decisions?
Oh, well, number one, let's just have a look at the last one. The Deputy Prime Minister was very clear, is that politics is now being involved in this. Well, he's the one in the Cabinet room. He's the one chosen by Jacinda Ardern. He's the Deputy. Thank you.
Just to be very clear, you're saying that the government is putting politics ahead of the health and economic response.
I don't think they've put anything into the economic response. I think they think the economy is just monopoly money and there's no consequences to massive borrowing with no plan ahead.
You're saying that they're politicking right now, is that correct?
I've said it's incorrect. I've said this before, Jason, I think you must have been away, that they are. It's increasingly becoming clear that politics has something to do with this now.
Can you give us a specific example?
Well, I think if you go and ask people in the South Island, they'll tell you what they think. Well, I've already said that very clearly.
Did a meeting with the Director General of Health so you can first-hand be provided the health advice that underpins these decisions?
Well, why don't they just release it?
Why don't you ask for it?
Well, if you'd like me to. But I tell you what, I'm focused on the economy because the way I see it, come another month, it won't be the current people in charge. We'll have a better plan, a better way forward. And I tell you what, we'll let people know exactly what that advice is.
Can I just go back to that specific example? Can you give me one area where the government is putting politics ahead of public health and economy, and if you could show us why they're doing that or how they're doing that?
Well, I'm asking you to tell me, and what I'm saying to you is very clearly, is the Deputy Prime Minister has been very clear that lockdowns at level 2 in the South Island at the moment are in fact not based on health advice or the economy. And so I'd say to you there's an obvious example. So that is very clear. And I would say to you as well, Jason, is that New Zealanders are not stupid. They understand exactly what's been going on recently, and we are very focused. So when you say there is an economic response from the government, there is no economic response from the government except to say they want to tax people more, spend more money on welfare, and actually not grow the economy.
You're quoting Winston Peters.
Well, I'm telling you very clearly, I'm not in the Cabinet room.
Are you saying that the level 2, still on the South Island being a level 2, is an example of the government playing politics?
I would have thought that was pretty obvious when the Deputy Prime Minister, who's in the Cabinet room, says that that is clearly what's going on. Well, I'm quoting you. Look, I'm not responsible for the current government's decisions. I'm telling you that's from, in his case, the horse's mouth. Okay.
Very good.
Which of the minor parties has the strongest campaign game?
Look, I'm not the judge of that. That's up to the people. My focus is very much on the National Party's policies, but even more importantly on an economic future for New Zealand.
Very much.
Okay, thank you.